Deep within the icy shell of Europa, Jupiter's sixth moon, darkness had reigned for 500,000 years. In a chamber buried 20 kilometers beneath the surface, the soft blue glow of emergency lights suddenly flickered to life. Condensation dripped from metal walls as heating systems engaged for the first time since the old Earth calendar had marked the year 2735. The central computer system, Sentinel, ran its activation protocols. Its artificial voice echoed through the empty halls of the facility. Revival sequence initiated. Time elapsed since shutdown. 499,872 years, 103 days, 17 hours. Beginning crew revival. Priority 1. Command staff. In the main stasis chamber, frost melted from 6 large metal pods arranged in a circle. The first pod hissed as its seal broke. Captain Thomas opened his eyes, gasping as his lungs filled with air for the first time in 500 millennia. His body shook with violent tremors as warmth returned to his limbs. "Status report," he croaked, his voice raw from disuse. "Revival successful, Captain," Sentinel responded. "Your vital signs are stabilizing. Memory and cognitive functions appear intact." Thomas tried to sit up, but his muscles refused to cooperate. He looked around the chamber, watching as the other pods began their revival sequences. The second pod opened, revealing Dr. Anna, the medical officer. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with confusion. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. When are we?" Thomas stared at the ceiling. Sentinel. Confirmed date and mission status. Current date by old Earth calendar. October 17, 3,234,972. Mission status. Stage 1 complete. Fleet preservation achieved. Now entering Stage 2. Reconnaissance and assessment. Dr. Anna's face paled. "It's been so long," she whispered. "Everyone we knew, everyone, is dust." Thomas finished, just as we planned. The remaining pods opened one by one. Major Robert, the military strategist, emerged next, followed by Engineer Paul, Communications Officer Linda, and finally, Science Officer Mark. Each awakening followed the same pattern: confusion, disorientation, and then the slow, terrible realization of how much time had passed. Major Robert was the first to regain enough strength to stand. He braced himself against his pod and surveyed the room. The ships. The fleet. Hidden fleet status. Operational. Sentinel reported. 97% of vessels preserved at optimal capacity. 3% show minor system degradation. Repair protocols active. Thomas closed his eyes, memories flooding back. The final days of humanity. The Wrathborn invasion. The systematic hunting and extermination of humans across every colony and outpost. Earth itself, burning. "Show me the last transmission," Thomas ordered. A holographic screen appeared in the center of the room. The image showed an older man in a tattered military uniform, his face streaked with blood and ash. Behind him, fires raged across what was once the final human settlement on Mars. "This is Admiral Wilson of the Earth Defense Force," the man said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "This will be the final transmission from known human forces. The Wrathborn have breached our last defenses. There will be no more transmissions after this. To anyone receiving this message in the far future, we were here. Humanity existed. And our final act is not surrender, but patience." The Admiral looked directly into the camera. "Captain Thomas, if you're watching this, then Project Lazarus worked. You are now what remains of humanity's vengeance. The Wrathborn believe they have won. Let them believe that for 500,000 years. Let them build their empire on the bones of our people. And then, when they have forgotten even the shape of a human face, when we are nothing but myths to them, wake up." The transmission ended. Silence filled the revival chamber. Engineer Paul broke the quiet. 500,000 years, he murmured. The solar system will have changed. The galaxy itself will have changed. Science Officer Mark nodded weakly from his pod. But physics hasn't changed, and neither has our mission. Thomas pushed himself to a sitting position, gritting his teeth against the pain in his unused muscles. Sentinel, begin full system activation. Prepare the command center. We need to know what we're facing. Processing, Captain, Sentinel replied. Activating deep space sensors. Initiating stealth protocols. The Wrathborn must not detect our awakening. As the crew slowly regained their mobility, Dr. Anna administered revival medications to ease their transition. Their bodies had been preserved through advanced technology, but no human had ever experienced such a long period in stasis before. They were, in every sense, prehistoric creatures now awakening in a future world. Communications Officer Linda made her way to a control panel and began running diagnostics. The quantum entanglement network is still functional, she reported. We can communicate with the fleet without detection. How many ships? Major Robert asked. 10,000 vessels, Sentinel answered, ranging from scout ships to world enders, all built and hidden before the final fall of humanity. All waiting for your command, Captain. Thomas stood shakily, accepting Dr. Anna's support. Show me Earth, he ordered. A new hologram appeared, showing their home planet as it currently existed. The crew fell silent at the sight. The blue world they had known was transformed. Massive monuments covered entire continents. Strange cities sprawled across once familiar landscapes. And in orbit, thousands of alien vessels moved in ceremonial patterns. The Wrathborn have made Earth their shrine, Science Officer Mark said quietly. A monument to our extinction. Major Robert's face hardened. They celebrate their genocide. Thomas watched the hologram, his expression unreadable. Sentinel, begin full awakening of the fleet AI systems. Prepare for crew training updates. We've been asleep for 500,000 years. We need to understand what we're facing. And then, Engineer Paul asked. Thomas turned to face his crew, the last humans in existence. And then we remind the galaxy why the Wrathborn feared us enough to try to wipe us out. They thought they succeeded. They've had 500,000 years to build their civilization on that belief. His eyes hardened. Now we show them their mistake. As Sentinel systems hummed to life throughout the hidden base, the first part of humanity's longest-planned revenge began to unfold. The hidden fleet, humanity's final legacy, was awakening. And across the galaxy, the Wrathborn continued their daily lives, unaware that judgment was stirring from its long sleep. 3 months after awakening, Captain Thomas stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet. Through the viewscreen, the vastness of space stretched before him, looking deceptively unchanged, despite the passage of 500,000 years. His crew had adapted remarkably well to their new reality, their bodies now recovered from the long sleep. Status report, Thomas said, his voice stronger than it had been during those first confused days after revival. All systems operational, Engineer Paul replied from his station. The stealth technology is performing beyond expectations. We've passed within scanning range of 3 Wrathborn outposts without detection. Thomas nodded. The fleet's technology had been cutting edge when they entered stasis, but the autonomous factories hidden throughout the solar system had continued to evolve and improved their designs for centuries before going dormant. The ships they now commanded represented the pinnacle of human innovation, technology that had developed without constraint or ethical limitation, designed for one purpose only: revenge. Communications Officer Linda, any update on the galactic political structure? Thomas asked. Linda looked up from her console. The Wrathborn dominate approximately 60% of the galaxy. They've subjugated at least 12 other species that we've identified. Their empire is vast, but not unchallenged. There are resistance movements, particularly in the Orion Arm. Major Robert grunted. Potential allies. Perhaps, Linda answered, but they're scattered and disorganized. The Wrathborn have been the dominant power for over 300,000 years. Science Officer Mark approached with a data tablet. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of their communication patterns. The Wrathborn language has evolved, but their basic communication protocols remain similar enough for our systems to decrypt. They still use the same mathematical foundations." "What have you learned?" Thomas asked. "The Wrathborn civilization is built on a foundation myth, the story of their rise to power through what they call the Great Cleansing," Mark explained. "The extermination of humanity is central to their cultural identity. They believe it proved their superiority and right to rule." Thomas's jaw tightened. "They're proud of what they did to us." "More than proud," Mark continued. "They've elevated it to religious significance. Earth is now a pilgrimage site. The anniversary of humanity's supposed final extinction is their most sacred holiday." Dr. Anna, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "We need to understand them better, see them up close. Intercepted transmissions can only tell us so much." Thomas turned to her. "What are you suggesting?" "An infiltration mission," she replied simply. "We have the technology. The biological reconstruction systems were designed for this purpose." Major Robert frowned. "It's too risky. If we're discovered, nothing changes," Dr. Anna interrupted. "They already believe they killed us all. But we need intelligence that can only be gathered from direct observation." Thomas considered this for a long moment. "Who would go?" "I will," said a voice from the doorway. All heads turned to see Intelligence Officer Lisa entering the bridge. Of all the revival crew, she had spoken the least since awakening, focusing instead on absorbing and analyzing the changed galaxy. "I've been studying their physical appearance, social structures, and behavioral patterns," Lisa continued. "The biological reconstruction chamber can modify my appearance temporarily. I can pass as a minor species within their empire, one with access to their outposts but not important enough to attract attention." Thomas studied her carefully. This wasn't part of the original mission parameters. "The original mission parameters were created 500,000 years ago," Lisa replied evenly. "We need current information to execute our vengeance effectively." After a day of heated debate, Thomas approved the mission. The vengeance positioned itself near a remote Wrathborn outpost, a trading station where various subjugated species were permitted limited movement. The biological reconstruction process was painful but successful. Lisa's human features were temporarily altered to match those of the Nerin, a species conquered by the Wrathborn only 20,000 years ago, recent enough that the Wrathborn still permitted them some freedom of movement. "The transformation will last approximately 14 days, Dr. Anna explained as Lisa examined her new appearance in a mirror. Her skin now had a faint blue tint, with ridges along her forehead and neck. "After that, your human DNA will reassert itself." Lisa nodded, testing her new vocal cords. "That's plenty of time." The infiltration went smoothly. Using a small transport vessel stolen from a Nerin cargo ship months earlier, Lisa entered the Wrathborn outpost with identification codes carefully crafted by Communications Officer Linda. For 10 days, she moved among the Wrathborn and their subject peoples, gathering information and insights impossible to obtain from intercepted transmissions. On the 11th day, Lisa stood in a vast hall within the outpost, surrounded by Wrathborn civilians and warriors. They were taller than humans had been, with gray-green skin and 4 eyes positioned to provide complete peripheral vision, an evolutionary advantage that had helped them become apex predators. A public announcement system called for attention as a high-ranking Wrathborn official took the central platform. "Tomorrow marks the eve of Ascension," the official announced, his voice carrying through the hall. 500,000 years ago, our ancestors completed the Great Cleansing, freeing the galaxy from the poison of humanity. The crowd rumbled with approval. "Humans were weak, yet dangerous," the official continued. "Their technology grew faster than their wisdom. Their emotions made them unpredictable. They spread like a disease through the stars, claiming worlds that were not theirs to take. Our ancestors recognized the threat and acted decisively. Not one human remained when they were finished. This was our species' greatest achievement, the act that proved we were worthy to rule. Lisa recorded everything, her modified eyes containing tiny cameras that transmitted data back to the Vengeance. She watched as the crowd of Wrathborn cheered, celebrating genocide as their defining moment. Later, she slipped into a restricted area of the outpost, using access code she had stolen from a careless administrator. In a secure archive, she found historical records, actual footage from the final days of humanity's destruction. She watched, stone-faced, as Wrathborn forces systematically demolished human colonies, hunted survivors, and finally bombarded Earth itself. The last recording showed the Wrathborn supreme commander of that era standing triumphantly in the ruins of what had once been London. "The human contagion is gone," he declared. "Their worlds are ours. Their memory will fade. In time, they will be nothing but a footnote in the glorious history of the Wrathborn Empire." When Lisa returned to the Vengeance 13 days after departing, her human features already beginning to reassert themselves through patches of painful transformation, she brought with her terabytes of data and a cold certainty that their mission was just. "They've built everything on our destruction," she reported to the command crew. 500,000 years later, and still they celebrate the day they thought they killed the last of us. Captain Thomas nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the star map showing the vast Wrathborn Empire. "Then it's time they learned the truth," he said quietly. "Humanity wasn't destroyed. We were patient." Around the table, the last humans in existence looked at each other, their purpose clearer than ever. The reconnaissance was complete. Now, the real work would begin. The command center of the Vengeance hummed with activity as the senior crew gathered around the holographic display. The three-dimensional projection showed the current state of the galaxy, with Wrathborn-controlled territories highlighted in red, a vast expanse covering nearly 2/3 of the known systems. Captain Thomas studied the map with narrowed eyes. "Show me our assets." Engineer Paul tapped a series of commands into the console. Blue dots appeared throughout the projection. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds, until thousands of points of light glimmered across the map. "What am I looking at?" Thomas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our full arsenal, Captain," Paul replied, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "While we slept, the autonomous factories continued their work for nearly 10,000 years before going dormant to avoid detection. What you're seeing is the complete hidden fleet, not just the ships we have here at our Europa base, but throughout the solar system and beyond." Major Robert leaned forward, his expression one of awe. "How many?" 10,000 primary vessels, Paul said, and nearly 100,000 autonomous support craft. The factories built them, hid them, and then erased all evidence of their existence. Communications Officer Linda shook her head in disbelief. "I thought we only had the ships here at Europa." "That was the information we were given before stasis," Paul explained. "A security measure. If any of us had been captured and interrogated, we would have revealed only a small fraction of the true plan." "Where are they all?" asked Dr. Anna, scanning the countless blue dots scattered across the map. "Everywhere," Paul said simply. "Buried under the ice of distant moons, hidden in asteroid belts, submerged in gas giants, even disguised as space debris in areas the Wrathborn consider uninhabitable." Thomas absorbed this information, his face unreadable. "Can we control them all?" "With Sentinel's help, yes," Paul confirmed. "Each ship has an AI system designed to coordinate with the others. They've been waiting 500,000 years for our signal." Science Officer Mark joined them at the display. "But there's more, Captain. These ships aren't just weapons of war. They're arcs." "Arcs," Thomas repeated. Mark nodded. "They contain DNA samples of Earth life, plants, animals, even human genetic material. Enough to potentially restore what was lost, if we wish." A heavy silence fell over the command center. The implication was clear. They weren't just planning revenge. They were carrying the seeds of resurrection. "Show me the Wrathborn homeworld," Thomas ordered after a long moment. The hologram shifted, focusing on a single planet orbiting a yellow star. Dense urban centers covered much of its surface. "Wrath Prime," Intelligence Officer Lisa said, stepping forward. "Population approximately 30 billion. The heart of their empire and their most sacred site after Earth." "Defenses?" Major Robert asked. "Substantial," Lisa answered. "Orbital platforms, defense fleets, planetary shields. But their technology has stagnated over the last 100,000 years. They've had no real rivals, no need to innovate. Meanwhile, our automated factories continued evolving our weapon systems until they went dormant." "So we can win," Robert said, not quite a question. "We can destroy them," Paul corrected. "Completely." Captain Thomas stared at the hologram of Wrath Prime, his fingers brushing against the image of the planet that had birthed humanity's destroyers. "Is that what we should do?" he asked quietly. The others looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean, Captain?" Major Robert asked, confusion evident in his voice. "This is our mission, vengeance for Earth, for all of humanity." "Yes," Thomas agreed. "But what form should that vengeance take? Complete annihilation? Does that make us any different from them?" Dr. Anna stepped closer. "We've had this debate before, Thomas. 500,000 years ago, before we entered stasis, the decision was made. By people watching their world burn," Thomas countered. "By humans witnessing genocide. We've awakened in a different galaxy. The Wrathborn of today didn't kill our families. Their ancestors did." Lisa's eyes flashed. "They celebrate that genocide. I saw it with my own eyes. It's the foundation of their civilization." "I'm not suggesting we do nothing," Thomas said, raising his hands. "I'm asking what victory looks like. Is it the extinction of another species, or something else?" The command center fell silent as the crew considered his words. Finally, Engineer Paul spoke. "We have options, Captain. The fleet was designed for maximum flexibility. We can strike military targets while sparing civilian populations. We can target their leadership. We can disable rather than destroy. Or we can make them face what they did," Science Officer Mark suggested. "Force them to confront their history honestly, not as a twisted point of pride." Major Robert shook his head. "They killed everyone, Captain. Everyone." "I know," Thomas said softly. "I watched Earth fall from the last evacuation ship. I saw my home burn. But I also remember what humans were before the end. Not just victims, but creators, explorers, dreamers. If we only act as destroyers, what are we preserving of humanity besides its worst impulse? Revenge." The debate continued for days. The command crew argued, sometimes bitterly, about the shape their vengeance should take. They reviewed historical records of the final war, studying the tactics the Wrathborn had used to hunt humans to extinction. They analyzed the current state of the Wrathborn Empire, identifying key vulnerabilities and command structures. On the fourth day, Thomas called for a decision. "We will strike in 3 phases," he announced, standing before his crew. "First, a demonstration of power, targeted attacks on military installations to show that their defenses mean nothing to us. Second, a revelation of truth. We will broadcast the actual history of their great cleansing throughout their empire, showing the horror of what they celebrate. And third," he paused, making eye contact with each member of his command staff. "A choice. A choice." Linda repeated. "Yes," Thomas confirmed. "We will give them the opportunity to acknowledge their crime and make reparations. If they refuse, then we unleash the full power of the hidden fleet upon their homeworld." Major Robert frowned. "And if they agree? What reparations could possibly balance the scale against genocide?" "They can relinquish Earth," Thomas said simply. "Return our homeworld to us, abandon their empire, and live under limitations we will impose. Their civilization will continue, but their days of dominance will end." "And if they resist?" asked Lisa, her expression hard. Thomas's eyes grew cold. Then they will join humanity in extinction. The choice will be theirs. The plan took shape over the following weeks. The hidden fleet began to activate, ships stirring from their long dormancy throughout the solar system and beyond. Weapons were checked, systems upgraded, and coordinates plotted. The Wrathborn, believing themselves unchallenged masters of the galaxy, remained unaware that judgment approached. As the day of the first strike drew near, Captain Thomas stood alone on the observation deck of the Vengeance, looking out at the stars. Behind him, the last humans prepared for war. Before him lay a galaxy that had forgotten them. Soon, that would change. "We're ready, Captain," Major Roberts said, appearing at Thomas's side. Thomas nodded. "Send the activation signal. Wake the fleet." Across the galaxy, thousands of hidden ships began to power up their engines. Humanity's vengeance, 500,000 years in the making, was about to begin. The Wrathborn military outpost orbiting Proxima Centauri's third planet was considered impregnable. 30 defense satellites, each armed with quantum disruptors, formed a protective web around the massive station. Below, on the planet's surface, 2 million Wrathborn soldiers trained in a high-gravity environment, preparing for deployment throughout the Empire. Commander Grell stood on the command deck, his 4 eyes scanning routine reports. In his 300 years of service, nothing unexpected had ever happened at this outpost. The Wrathborn Empire had known peace for millennia. Occasional rebellions from subject species were quickly crushed, and no outside force dared challenge their dominance. "Sir," a junior officer called, "sensors are detecting an anomaly at the edge of the system." Grell didn't bother looking up. "Cosmic radiation. Run the standard diagnostic." "I already did, sir. It's not registering as any known phenomenon. It appears to be moving." Now Grell raised his head, mandibles clicking in irritation. "Put it on screen." The main view screen activated, showing empty space at first. Then, like water rippling, the vacuum seemed to distort. A massive shape emerged from nothingness. A sleek, dark vessel unlike any Wrathborn design. "Impossible," Grell whispered. Before he could issue orders, more ripples appeared. 10, 20, 50 ships materialized, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. They formed a perfect attack formation. "Raise shields. Contact Imperial Command," Grell shouted. "Unknown fleet, this is Commander Grell of the Wrathborn Empire. Identify yourselves immediately or—" His words died in his throat as a beam of energy. So concentrated it appeared solid, lanced from the lidship. It struck the nearest defense satellite, which didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, its particles dispersed at the atomic level. Aboard the Vengeance, Captain Thomas watched the first strike through the view screen. "Precision fire only," he ordered. "Target military assets. No civilian casualties." Major Robert nodded, directing the fleet's movements with practiced efficiency. First defensive ring neutralized. Moving to secondary targets. The hidden fleet moved with perfect coordination, each ship functioning as part of a single organism. Weapons that had been theoretical when humanity fell now demonstrated their devastating effectiveness. Defense satellites vanished. Communications arrays dissolved. The outpost's shields, designed to withstand the strongest known weapons in the galaxy, flickered and failed under weapons they had never been designed to resist. "Their distress signal has been sent," Communications Officer Linda reported. "The Wrathborn Imperial fleet has been alerted." Thomas nodded grimly. "Good. Let them come." On Wrath Prime, the Wrathborn homeworld, Supreme Commander Vrax was awakened from sleep by urgent alerts. He rushed to the Imperial Command Center, where chaos reigned. "Report," he bellowed, silencing the room. Admiral Torque stepped forward, his posture rigid with tension. "The Proxima Centauri outpost is under attack. 57 ships of unknown origin. Our defenses are failing. Vrax repeated incredulously. "That outpost has our most advanced defensive systems. The attackers are using technology we've never encountered, Torque explained. Energy signatures that don't match any known weapons, and they appeared from nowhere. Our early warning systems detected nothing until they were already inside the defensive perimeter. Vrax stared at the tactical display, watching as the outpost's defenses crumbled. Who are they? Rebels? A new species from beyond explored space. Unknown, Supreme Commander. They've made no communications, issued no demands. Vrax's 4 eyes narrowed. Deploy the 7th Fleet. I want those ships destroyed and their origin determined. Back at Proxima Centauri, the battle, if it could be called that, was already ending. The Wrathborn outpost had been systematically dismantled, its weapons neutralized, its communication capabilities destroyed. The station itself remained intact, its terrified crew huddled inside. All military targets neutralized, Major Robert reported. The station's life support systems remain functional. Thomas stood. Open a channel to the station. All frequencies, all languages. Linda nodded. Channel open, Captain. Thomas took a deep breath. Attention Wrathborn Outpost. This is Captain Thomas of the Human Hidden Fleet. 500,000 years ago, your ancestors believed they had exterminated humanity from the galaxy. They were wrong. We have returned. This attack is the first of many. Your empire will fall. Your worlds will burn. As you did to us, so we shall do to you. On the view screen, they could see the stunned faces of the Wrathborn command staff. Commander Grell stepped forward, mandibles working soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. Humans? He finally managed. That's impossible. The Great Cleansing eliminated your species completely. Clearly not, Thomas replied coldly. We have been waiting, watching, preparing. Your civilization is built on the murder of ours. Now we have returned to balance the scales of justice. These are ancient events, Grell protested. None alive today participated in the Great Cleansing. Yet you celebrate it, Thomas countered. You have built monuments to genocide. You teach your children that your greatest achievement was the extermination of another sentient species. Today, that species has returned. Before Grell could respond, Linda interrupted. Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. The Wrathborn 7th Fleet is arriving. Thomas nodded. End transmission. He turned to Major Robert. Prepare for Phase 2. 63 Wrathborn warships emerged from hyperspace, their massive forms arranged in attack formation. Each was a city in space, housing tens of thousands of warriors and enough firepower to reduce planets to ash. They had crushed rebellions across 3 galaxies without ever suffering a meaningful defeat. Admiral Krell, commander of the 7th Fleet, allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as his ships surrounded the mysterious attackers. Whatever these creatures were, claiming to be humans, of all things, they would soon learn the price of challenging the Wrathborn Empire. Enemy vessels, he broadcast, you are surrounded by the might of the Wrathborn 7th Fleet. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Thomas smiled. No response. Activate the phase disruptors. Engineer Paul worked his console. Phase disruptors active, Captain. Ready on your command. Thomas studied the Wrathborn fleet. These ships, these warriors, were the direct descendants of those who had burned Earth. Their ancestors had hunted humans like animals, had celebrated their supposed extinction. Now, finally, humanity would have its answer. Fire, Thomas ordered. From the hidden fleet, invisible waves of energy pulsed outward. They weren't explosions or beams, but something more fundamental, alterations to the basic physics of localized space. The Wrathborn ships didn't explode or break apart. Instead, their systems simply stopped functioning. Engines died. Weapons went offline. Life support faltered. 63 mighty warships hung helpless in space, their crews suddenly fighting for survival rather than victory. Admiral Krell stared in horror at his dead console. Around him, the bridge of his flagship was illuminated only by emergency lighting. "What is happening?" he demanded, but no one had answers. The view screen flickered back to life, showing the face of Captain Thomas. "Admiral," Thomas said calmly, "your fleet has not been destroyed. We could have annihilated you, but chose not to. Instead, consider this a demonstration and a warning. Your ships will regain minimal power in approximately 48 hours, enough for life support and communications, but not weapons or propulsion." "Who are you?" Krell whispered. "We told you. We are humanity. We have returned to reclaim what was taken from us, and to hold accountable those who tried to erase us from existence." "But humans are extinct," Krell protested. "Your species died out 500,000 years ago." Thomas's eyes hardened. "That's what you were taught. The truth is about to be shared across your empire." As the hidden fleet disappeared back into their cloaking fields, leaving the disabled Wrathborn vessels drifting in space, a signal propagated throughout the galaxy. It bypassed Wrathborn security protocols, overrode entertainment frequencies, and appeared on every communication device in Wrathborn-controlled space. Throughout the Empire, billions of Wrathborn watched in confusion, and then mounting horror as the true history of the Great Cleansing played before their eyes. Not as a glorious victory, but as the atrocity it had been. Centuries of propaganda crumbled against the weight of actual historical footage, preserved for 500,000 years by those who had sworn never to let the truth die with them. On Wrath Prime, Supreme Commander Vrax watched the broadcast with growing dread. "Shut it down," he ordered, but his technical staff could only shake their heads helplessly. The signal couldn't be blocked. "Supreme Commander," Admiral Torque said quietly, "if these truly are humans, if they have technology that can disable our most powerful fleet without destruction, what else might they be capable of?" Vrax had no answer. For the first time in recorded Wrathborn history, their absolute dominance of the galaxy was in question. And somewhere out there, the last humans watched as the Empire built on their supposed extinction began to understand that judgment had finally arrived. 1 month after the first strike, the galaxy trembled with uncertainty. The Wrathborn Empire, undefeated for 500,000 years, found itself facing an enemy they had believed extinct, an enemy with technology far beyond their own. The Hidden Fleet had struck 16 more military targets since Proxima Centauri, each attack executed with surgical precision. No civilian casualties. No planets bombarded. Just the systematic dismantling of the Wrathborn war machine. On Wrath Prime, Supreme Commander Vrax faced the Imperial Council, their usual confidence replaced by barely concealed panic. "They could have destroyed us already," said Councillor Morn, the eldest member. "Why haven't they?" "They're playing with us," hissed Defense Minister Krall, "torturing us with fear before they strike the final blow." Vrax looked out at the faces of the most powerful Wrathborn in existence. "The humans have made no demands beyond broadcasting the truth of the Great Cleansing. Our analysts believe they're demonstrating their power while giving us time to contemplate our situation." "Our situation?" Krall laughed bitterly. "Our situation is that we face extinction at the hands of a species we thought we had exterminated." An aide rushed into the chamber, interrupting the council. "Supreme Commander, the human fleet has been detected approaching Wrath Prime. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands." Silence fell over the council chamber. Then, every communication device in the room activated simultaneously. Captain Thomas's face appeared on each screen. "Leaders of the Wrathborn," he said, his voice steady. "You have witnessed our power. You have seen the truth of your history. Now you face a choice. In 6 hours, I will arrive at your homeworld to hear your decision. Choose wisely. Your civilization's survival depends on it." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Councillor Morn was the first to speak. "What decision? What do they want from us?" "They want everything," Vrax replied quietly. "They want what we took from them. A homeworld, a future, justice." Aboard the Vengeance, Captain Thomas sat alone in his quarters. On his desk sat a small plant, a descendant of Earth flora, grown from seeds preserved for 500,000 years. He gently touched one green leaf, marveling at its simple resilience. A chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Thomas called. Dr. Anna stepped inside, her face troubled. "The fleet is assembled, Captain. We'll reach Wrath Prime in 5 hours." Thomas nodded. "Good." Anna hesitated, then asked, "Have you decided?" "What the Council decided 500,000 years ago still stands," Thomas replied. "The Wrathborn must answer for what they did." "But what form will that answer take?" Anna pressed. "Will we be executioners today, or something else?" Thomas looked at the small plant. "That depends on them." The Vengeance led the hidden fleet toward Wrath Prime. Behind the flagship came 10,000 ships of varying sizes, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making them appear as black voids against the stars. They moved in perfect formation, a testament to both their technology and their purpose. On the bridge, the command crew worked in focused silence. This moment, the culmination of a plan 500,000 years in the making, weighed heavily on them all. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Linda announced. "It's the Wrathborn Supreme Commander." Thomas straightened in his command chair. On screen, Supreme Commander Vrax appeared, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in Wrathborn physiology. "Captain Thomas, I speak for the Imperial Council and all Wrathborn." Thomas said nothing, simply waiting. Vrax seemed unsettled by the silence. "We have reviewed the historical records you broadcast. If they are accurate—" "They are," Thomas interrupted. "If they are accurate," Vrax continued, "then the foundation of our civilization rests upon a moral catastrophe. The Great Cleansing was not the glorious victory we were taught, but a genocide of unforgivable scale." Thomas leaned forward. "And yet your ancestors celebrated it, built monuments to it, made it the cornerstone of your identity." "Yes," Vrax admitted. "We cannot change the past, Captain, but perhaps we can address the present. What do you want from us? What would satisfy humanity's need for justice?" Thomas glanced at his crew, then back to the screen. 3 things. First, the immediate dissolution of the Wrathborn Empire. Your subjugated species will be freed. Your military disbanded. Second, Earth will be returned to humanity, untouched and intact. You will abandon our homeworld entirely. Third, the Wrathborn will live under restrictions we will determine, confined to your original star system, your technology limited, your society rebuilt without the mythology of the Great Cleansing. Vrax's mandibles clicked nervously. "You're asking us to surrender everything we are." "We're offering you existence," Thomas corrected, "which is more than your ancestors offered humanity." "And if we refuse?" Thomas's expression hardened. "Then we will do to Wrath Prime what your ancestors did to Earth. Your species will join the list of extinct civilizations. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Major Robert approached Thomas. "They'll never agree. Their pride won't allow it." "Perhaps," Thomas acknowledged. "But they've never faced extinction before. It clarifies the mind." For 5 tense hours, the hidden fleet held position above Wrath Prime. On the planet below, billions of Wrathborn looked up at the ships that held their fate. The Imperial Council debated furiously, their conversation swinging between defiance and desperate acquiescence. Finally, Vrax contacted the Vengeance again. His posture was different now. Shoulders slumped, head slightly bowed. "Captain Thomas, the Imperial Council has reached its decision." He paused, visibly struggling. "We accept your terms. The Wrathborn Empire will end. Earth will be returned to humanity. We will submit to your restrictions." Thomas studied the alien leader, searching for deception. "Why?" he asked simply. Vrax seemed surprised by the question. "Why what? Why accept? Your military advisors must have urged resistance." "They did," Vrax confirmed. "But then I asked them a question. What would humans have done?" 500,000 years ago, if offered the same choice, would they have chosen survival over pride? Thomas felt a jolt of understanding. And what answer did you reach? That humans chose to wait, to plan, to survive at any cost, so that justice might eventually be served. Vrax's 4 eyes met Thomas's 2. We are learning from our enemy, Captain. We choose survival, even a diminished one, over extinction. Thomas nodded slowly. A wise choice. Prepare your people. Representatives of the Hidden Fleet will arrive on your world within 24 hours to begin the transition. As the transmission ended, Thomas turned to his crew. Implement the containment protocols. I want monitoring stations surrounding Wrathborn within the hour. Yes, Captain, Major Robert replied, already issuing orders. Dr. Anna approached Thomas as the bridge crew dispersed to their duties. What happens now? She asked softly. Thomas looked out at the view screen, at the planet that had birthed humanity's destroyers. Now we rebuild. Not just a fleet or an outpost, but Earth itself. We bring back what was lost. Can we? After so long. Thomas thought of the small plant in his quarters, a green reminder that life persisted. We have the genetic material. We have the technology. It won't be the same Earth, but it will be ours again. And the Wrathborn, she pressed. They'll live under our watch, not as slaves or subjects, but as a contained civilization. Perhaps in time, they'll become something better than what they were. As the Hidden Fleet began the complex process of dismantling an empire and restoring a world, Thomas found himself on the observation deck, gazing at distant Earth, still visible as a blue dot among the stars. Soon, humans would walk its surface again. Trees would grow. Animals would roam. Life would return to the world that had birthed them. It wasn't the revenge that the architects of the Hidden Fleet had originally envisioned. There would be no Wrathborn extinction, no planetary bombardments to mirror what humans had suffered. Instead, there would be justice, harsh but not genocidal. The Wrathborn would face consequences, but they would survive. Thomas wondered if the humans who had created this plan, who had gone into stasis with vengeance burning in their hearts, would have approved of this outcome. Perhaps not all of them. But as he looked out at the stars, at a galaxy now forever changed by humanity's return, he felt certain that they had preserved something more important than the ability to destroy. They had preserved humanity's capacity for mercy, the very thing that made them different from those who had once tried to wipe them out. Earth is waiting, he said quietly to himself. Let's go home. The message screen in Earth Defense Force headquarters turned dark for the 3rd time that day. Commander Jack Stone slammed his fist against the control panel, his weathered face reflecting the dim emergency lights. 50 years of military service hadn't prepared him for this moment. No one had been prepared. The alien ships had appeared 7 days ago, their massive forms blocking out the sun over major cities worldwide. They called themselves the Collectors, and they hadn't come to make friends. Sir, a young officer called out from his station, we've lost contact with the Asian Defense Fleet. The officer's voice cracked as he delivered the news. It was the 4th fleet they'd lost today. Jack closed his eyes, remembering the confident speeches he'd given just last week about Earth's readiness for any threat. Their most advanced fighters, armed with the latest missiles and energy weapons, had proven as effective as throwing rocks at a battleship. Through the command center's reinforced windows, he watched as another collector vessel descended through the clouds. These ships weren't even their primary warships. They were resource collectors, harvesting vessels. Earth's entire military force was being decimated by what amounted to alien mining equipment. Commander Stone, Dr. Emma Walker's voice came through his earpiece. She was broadcasting from the underground research facility beneath Mount Hood. You need to see this. The scans we're getting from their ships, there's something odd about their technology. Doctor, with all due respect, we're a bit busy getting our asses handed to us right now, Jack replied, watching as another missile barrage bounced harmlessly off the alien shields. That's just it, Commander. Their tech, It's not as advanced as we initially thought. It's just different. Very different. We're looking at it all wrong. A deafening explosion rocked the building. The massive windows cracked but held. Outside, the last squadron of F-35s fell from the sky like dead flies. Jack had known those pilots since they were fresh out of the academy. All forces fall back to secondary positions, he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Initiate Protocol Omega. Get our people underground. The collectors had been methodical in their approach. They disabled global communications first, then took out military installations with surgical precision. Now they were moving on to resource extraction. Humanity's greatest cities were being stripped for materials, their populations fleeing into hastily constructed underground shelters. What bothered Jack most was their attitude. The collectors hadn't even bothered to communicate beyond their initial message. Your resources are now under our management. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. They viewed Earth as nothing more than an unexploited mining site, and humans as primitive natives who needed to be swept aside. 3 hours later, Jack stood in Dr. Walker's underground lab, staring at the holographic displays. The facility had been built for exactly this kind of scenario, a full invasion, but no one had really believed it would happen. The doctor's team had been analyzing the alien technology non-stop since first contact. Look at this. Emma pointed to a diagram of one of the collector ships. Her gray hair was pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept in days. Their tech isn't just advanced. It's wasteful, inefficient, like they never had to worry about resource constraints. Jack watched as she pulled up more detailed scans. They're using massive amounts of energy for simple tasks. Their ship's systems are redundant to the point of absurdity. It's like they solved every problem by throwing more power at it. How does this help us? Jack asked, his patience wearing thin. Above them, they could hear the distant rumble of another city being stripped for resources. Because Emma's eyes lit up with a familiar spark, the same look she'd had when she'd developed Earth's first functional plasma drive. They left us gifts. She led him to another section of the lab. Through a massive window, he could see a hangar filled with debris, pieces of collector ships that had been damaged in the fighting and discarded. They don't even bother recovering their damaged equipment, Emma explained. To them, it's junk. Primitive. Outdated. But to us, she paused, letting the implications sink in. Jack began to understand. It's still centuries ahead of our technology. Exactly. And here's the beautiful part. They're so convinced of their superiority, they didn't even bother to destroy it. They just left it lying around, like littering on a primitive planet. For the first time in days, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. But he was a military man, trained to see the practical challenges. How long would it take to understand their technology? To make it useful? Emma's expression turned serious. Years, maybe decades, but we have something they don't. And what's that? Necessity, she said simply. They've never had to innovate under pressure, never had to make do with limited resources, never had to adapt or die. But us humans, she smiled grimly. That's what we do best. Jack looked at the alien debris again, seeing it with new eyes. Each piece wasn't just junk. It was a puzzle piece, a key to humanity's survival. He thought about the collectors above, so casual in their dominance, so certain of their superiority. How many other facilities like this one are still operational? He asked. Emma pulled up a global map. Dozens of dots glowed across every continent, hidden bunkers and underground research stations, all connected through hardened communication lines the collectors hadn't detected. Enough, she replied. And they're all seeing what we're seeing. Teams across the world are already starting to study different aspects of their technology. The collectors think they've conquered us, that we'll just hide in our holes and wait to die. Jack nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind. So we let them think that. We play the primitive species, too broken to fight back. And meanwhile, Emma finished, We learn. We adapt. We take their cast-offs and cast-asides, and we make them our own. They think they're watching us die, but they're really watching us evolve. Above them, the collectors continued their methodical harvest of Earth's resources, unaware that their greatest mistake wasn't in underestimating humanity's current capabilities, but in underestimating their potential. In their arrogance, they had given humanity exactly what it needed: a chance. Jack looked at the alien debris one more time, then turned to Emma. "How soon can we start?" She was already walking toward the hangar, tablet in hand. "We already have. Welcome to Project Phoenix, Commander. Let's show these collectors what humans can do with a little junk and a lot of motivation." The first day of Earth's greatest challenge was ending, but in underground facilities across the world, the seeds of humanity's comeback were already taking root. The collectors thought they were writing humanity's ending. They didn't realize they were only writing the first chapter. 5 years passed in the underground. 5 years of studying, failing, learning, and trying again. The surface of Earth had become alien territory, but beneath the ground, humanity was far from defeated. Emma Walker stood in her expanded laboratory, now 10 times the size of the original, watching as teams of engineers worked on various pieces of alien technology. The air hummed with the sound of reverse-engineered power systems. What had once been alien junk now powered their underground cities. Dr. Walker. Tom Reed, one of her youngest engineers, rushed into the lab. His face was flushed with excitement. The power coupling worked. It actually worked. Emma followed him to the testing chamber. Inside, a hybrid engine sat on the testing platform, part human technology, part salvaged alien tech, but the way they'd combined them was entirely new. The collectors' power systems were always inefficient, Emma explained to the gathered team. They used brute force because they could, but we've learned to do more with less. The engine hummed to life, its energy readings steady and strong. Where the collector's system would have needed a room full of power cells, their hybrid version worked with just 2. It was smaller, more efficient, and most importantly, it worked. Jack Stone entered the testing chamber, his hair grayer now but his stance still military straight. "Tell me some good news, Doc. The Council's asking for updates." The Council, a unified group of military and civilian leaders from around the world, had formed in the first year after the invasion. They called it the Phoenix Protocol, a complete rebuilding of human civilization, but this time hidden from the collector's eyes. Emma smiled. "Show him, Tom." Tom activated the engine's full power. The energy output readings shot up, but the system remained stable. "Sir, we're getting more power than the original alien design, using less than half the resources." Jack whistled low. "They won't be expecting that." "That's not all," Emma added. She pulled up a holographic display showing the surface. "The collectors are still up there, still harvesting. But they're getting sloppy. Overconfident. They leave more and more salvageable tech behind." The collectors' arrogance had become humanity's greatest asset. Every piece of junk they discarded was carefully collected by hidden teams and brought to facilities like this one. Each fragment was a piece of the puzzle, a step toward humanity's return. "We're not just copying their technology anymore," Emma continued. "We're improving it, making it our own. The hybrid systems we're developing, they're better than anything the collectors have." Jack walked around the engine, examining it closely. "How soon until we can scale this up? Start building ships?" "We already have." Emma led them through a series of security doors to a massive underground cavern. Inside, illuminated by powerful lights, stood the frame of a spacecraft. It was smaller than the collector's ships, but its design was sleek, efficient. Human ingenuity merged with alien technology. "We're calling it Phoenix 1, Emma said proudly. "It's nearly ready for its first test flight. We've built it using everything we've learned. And the best part, it's completely undetectable to their scanning systems." The ship's hull was covered in panels reverse-engineered from the collector's own stealth technology. but where they used it as a backup system, humanity had made it central to their design. Every system was built around the concept of staying hidden, of appearing weaker than they were. The other facilities? Jack asked, all reporting similar progress. Moscow has cracked their shield technology. Sydney's got weapon systems that are twice as effective with half the power drain. Berlin's work on navigation systems is years ahead of schedule. The global network of underground facilities had grown into a web of innovation. Each breakthrough was shared, each failure learned from. Humanity had been forced underground, but like seeds in winter, they had only grown stronger. There's something else, Emma said, leading them to her private lab. Something we discovered by accident. She pulled up data from their latest tests. The collector's technology. It's not just inefficient. It's inflexible. They build everything to spec and never deviate. But we found ways to adapt it, combine it, use it in ways they never imagined. She showed them test results from their hybrid systems. Their power cores can be modified to work with our systems in ways they never intended. Their shield technology can be reversed to create weapons. Every piece of tech they've discarded, we've found new ways to use. Jack studied the data. After 5 years, he'd learned enough to understand the implications. They won't be able to counter what they've never imagined. Exactly. Emma's eyes shone with pride. They think they're watching a primitive species slowly die out. They have no idea we're evolving beyond their understanding. Through another window, they could see teams of workers assembling more hybrid engines. The underground facility had become a hive of activity, a hidden factory building humanity's future. The council needs to know about this, Jack said. How long until Phoenix 1 is ready for its first flight? 2 weeks, Emma replied. We'll need to test it at night, when their patrols are lighter. The stealth systems should keep us hidden, but we only get one chance to surprise them. Jack finished. He understood the stakes. The moment they revealed their progress, they'd lose the advantage of being underestimated. Emma nodded. We're not ready for a full confrontation yet. But this, she gestured to the ship. This is proof that we can do more than just survive. We can win. The next 2 weeks were a blur of final preparations. Teams worked around the clock, checking and rechecking every system. The Phoenix 1 had to be perfect. It would carry not just its crew, but the hopes of every human on Earth. On the night of the test flight, Emma stood with Jack in the control room. Above them, through layers of rock and soil, the collector's ships continued their patrols, unaware that their supposed victims were about to take their first step toward revolution. Launch sequence initiated, Tom announced from his station. The underground launch bay doors opened silently, revealing a carefully hidden exit to the surface. Remember, Emma said to the pilot through the comm system, full stealth protocols. No risks. We just need to prove it works. The Phoenix 1 rose silently from its berth. Its hybrid engines, built from the collector's cast-offs and human innovation, hummed with power. As it ascended toward the surface, every person in the control room held their breath. This was more than just a test flight. It was humanity's first real step toward reclaiming their world. And thanks to the collector's own cast-off technology, they had a fighting chance. The ship broke through to the surface, invisible to the alien patrols above. Humanity's comeback had begun, and their greatest advantage was that their enemies didn't even know it. The underground hangar buzzed with activity as the newly completed fleet of stealth ships stood ready. 8 years had passed since the collectors first arrived, and humanity had used every moment wisely. Commander Jack Stone walked between the rows of ships, each one a testament to human determination. Fleet status report. He called out to the control room above. The massive underground chamber had once been a natural cave system. Now it housed humanity's secret weapon. All 30 ships report ready, Commander. The controller responded. Adaptation drives are running at peak efficiency. The adaptation drive that had been Emma's breakthrough. Not just copying alien technology, but fundamentally changing how it worked. The collector's cast-off power cores had been transformed into something entirely new. Speaking of which, a familiar voice called from behind him. Emma walked up, her tablet displaying the latest test results. The new modifications are exceeding expectations. The drive doesn't just power the ships anymore. It learns. Jack raised an eyebrow. Learns. Watch this. Emma pulled up a holographic display showing 2 ships in a simulation. The drive adapts to different situations. The more we use it, the more efficient it becomes. It's like the ship evolves during flight. Above them, through hundreds of meters of rock, the collectors continued their methodical harvesting of Earth's resources. They still hadn't noticed that their abandoned technology had been transformed into something beyond their understanding. Any sign they suspect? Jack asked, checking the surface monitors. Emma shook her head. Their patrols haven't changed in years. They still think we're just scattered survivors hiding in holes. Their arrogance is our best camouflage. The truth was far different. Under every major city ruin, humans had built vast networks of tunnels and facilities. The Phoenix Protocol had transformed humanity from refugees into a hidden army. Launch Bay 3 reports ready, the controller announced. Night patrol training can begin on schedule. Jack watched as one of the ships powered up. Its hull was covered in panels that bent light around it, another innovation born from studying collector technology. They'd taken the aliens' basic stealth systems and refined them until they were nearly perfect. Remember the first test flight? Emma asked, smiling at the memory. We were all so nervous. Now we've got pilots running training missions right under their noses. Jack allowed himself a small smile. How many ships are we up to globally? 217, Emma replied. All equipped with adaptation drives. Moscow just finished their latest squadron, and Beijing's underground shipyards are working double shifts. Through another set of blast doors, they could see the weapons testing area. The collector's energy weapons had been powerful but wasteful. Humans had redesigned them, making them smaller, more efficient, and far more precise. Latest combat simulations are promising, Emma continued, showing him the data. Our pilots are learning to use the ships in ways the collectors never imagined. The adaptation drive lets them pull maneuvers that should be impossible. A group of pilots walked past, heading for the simulator rooms. They trained constantly, preparing for the day when hiding would no longer be necessary. Each pilot was chosen for their ability to think creatively, to use the hybrid technology in unexpected ways. The Council wants an update on Project Mirror, Jack said, referring to their latest innovation. Emma's eyes lit up. Come see for yourself. They took a transport tube to another section of the facility. The tube system connected all the major underground installations, allowing quick movement without risking surface detection. As they traveled, they passed workshops where engineers worked on salvaged collector technology, living quarters built into the rock, and farms using modified alien lighting systems to grow food underground. Project Mirror's lab was their most secure facility. Inside, teams of scientists worked on what looked like pieces of broken mirror, but were actually fragments of collector sensor arrays. We've cracked their scanning technology, Emma explained. But instead of just copying it, we've reversed it. These panels don't just hide us from their scans. They can feed false readings back to their ships. Jack picked up one of the smaller panels, so we can make them see what we want them to see. Exactly. We can make an empty piece of space look full, or a fleet of ships look like space debris. Every piece of tech they carelessly discarded has become a tool for us to use against them. A test was underway in the chamber next door. A small drone equipped with mirror panels flew through a series of sensor arrays. On the monitoring screens, the drone appeared as nothing more than a small rock. The best part, Emma added, the system gets more convincing with use. The more they scan us, the better we get at fooling their sensors. The adaptation drive taught us that their technology can be pushed far beyond their imagination. They returned to the main hangar just as the night patrol was launching. 6 ships rose silently through the hidden exits, their hulls invisible to both eyes and sensors. They would fly regular patrols, testing equipment and training pilots while the collectors remained oblivious. 8 years, Jack mused, watching the ships depart. 8 years of hiding, learning, and building. How much longer do you think we need? Emma considered the question. The ships are ready. The weapons work. The stealth systems are better than we ever hoped. But we need to be sure. We only get one chance to surprise them. In another part of the facility, they checked on the training programs. Young pilots worked in simulators, learning to handle the hybrid ships. Engineers studied captured collector technology, looking for new ways to improve their designs. Every person had a role in humanity's silent revolution. The collectors still send scouts occasionally, Jack noted, checking the surface monitors, looking for signs of resistance, and finding nothing but ruins and scattered survivors. Emma added, "Meanwhile, we're building something they can't even imagine, a force that uses their own technology better than they do." A message came through from the Beijing facility. They'd completed work on their latest innovation, a way to use the adaptation drive to boost shield strength beyond anything the collectors had achieved. Every facility shared their breakthroughs, each innovation making humanity stronger. Surface teams report increased collector activity in Sector 7, the controller announced. They're stripping another city. Jack and Emma watched the feeds. The massive alien ships descended from the clouds, their harvest beams cutting through abandoned buildings. They were so focused on gathering resources, they never thought to look below the ruins. "Let them take what they want from the surface," Emma said quietly. "Everything that matters is down here. And when we're ready," Jack finished, "they'll learn what humanity can do with a little time and motivation." The night patrol returned, ships sliding silently back into their berths. Another successful mission, another step closer to their goal. In facilities around the world, humanity's hidden fleet grew stronger, smarter, more capable. The collectors thought they were watching a defeated species slowly fade away. Instead, they were watching the greatest comeback in human history, built from their own discarded scraps. And they wouldn't realize their mistake until it was too late. The warning came at dawn. Surface sensors detected multiple collector ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Not just harvesting vessels this time, warships. The largest fleet humanity had seen since the first invasion, 13 years ago. Jack Stone stood in the Global Command Center, watching as red dots appeared on the massive display screen. Each dot represented a collector vessel entering Earth's orbit. Around him, controllers maintained absolute calm. They had trained for this day. "Counting 75 ships," the sensor officer reported, much larger than their usual harvest fleet. Emma rushed into the command center, her tablet displaying real-time analysis of the incoming vessels. They'd brought their newest ships, better armor, stronger weapons. They must have noticed some of their technology going missing. "Or they're just being thorough," Jack replied. He pressed a button on his command console, activating the global alert system. In underground facilities around the world, humanity's hidden fleet prepared for battle. The collector ships moved into formation above Earth's major cities, or what remained of them. Their previous harvesting missions had left most surface structures in ruins. A transmission broadcast on all frequencies, the first direct communication from the collectors in over a decade. "Primitive species," the message began, their tone as arrogant as ever. "Our sensors detect attempts to salvage and utilize our discarded technology. This is unacceptable. Your resistance will be eliminated." Emma couldn't help but smile. "They still think we're just scavenging their leftovers. They have no idea what we've built." "All facilities report ready," the communications officer announced. "Fleet commanders await your orders, sir." Jack took a deep breath. 13 years of preparation had led to this moment. Initiate Operation Rising Phoenix. All ships, launch on my mark. Around the world, hidden bay doors opened in the ruins of old cities. Beneath abandoned buildings and inside mountain caves, humanity's secret weapon waited. 300 ships, each one a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and transformed collector technology. Remember, Jack broadcast to all pilots, they don't know what we can do. Use that surprise. Fight smart, not just hard. Emma monitored the adaptation drive readings across the fleet. All drives showing green. Mirror systems active and synchronized. They still can't see us. Jack gave the order. Launch. Across the globe, human ships rose from their hidden bases. The adaptation drives hummed silently, making them invisible to both eyes and sensors. They took position around the collector fleet, who continued their threatening broadcast, completely unaware they were now surrounded. All ships in position. The tactical officer reported, waiting for your command. Jack looked at Emma, who nodded. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future. Disable mirror systems. Let them see what they're really facing. 300 ships suddenly appeared around the collector fleet, their hybrid weapons charged and ready. The alien broadcast cut off mid-sentence. For several seconds, there was complete silence. They're scanning us, Emma reported, watching the data flow across her screen. Their sensors can't make sense of what they're seeing. The adaptation drives don't match anything in their database. The collectors recovered quickly, their ships moving to attack formation. Their first volley of energy weapons launched at the human fleet and passed harmlessly through the spaces where the ships had been. The human pilots put their years of training to use. The adaptation drives let their ships move in ways the collectors had never seen, avoiding attacks while launching their own. Weapons that the collectors had considered primitive now pierced their strongest shields, guided by targeting systems that learned and adapted mid-battle. Their flagship is trying to coordinate their fleet, Emma called out. But our ships are moving too unpredictably. They can't establish a firing pattern. Jack watched as humanity's fleet executed maneuvers that should have been impossible. Ships spiraled through enemy fire, their adaptation drives learning and improving with each evasion. The hybrid weapons, built from salvaged collector technology, but refined and improved, struck with devastating accuracy. Multiple collector ships disabled, the tactical officer reported. They're falling back to secondary positions. The collectors tried to regroup, to adapt to humanity's tactics. But that was humanity's greatest strength now. Adaptation. Each time the collectors thought they had figured out how to counter the human ships, the adaptation drives would shift, change, evolve into something new. Their shields are failing, Emma announced. They never imagined their own technology could be used like this. Every time they scan us, every time they try to predict our movements, the drives learn more about how to counter them. A desperate transmission came from the collector flagship. What are you? These systems. This is not possible. Jack opened a channel to respond. We're humanity. You left us for dead, surrounded by what you thought was junk. Big mistake. The battle continued above Earth's scarred surface. Collector ships, for all their size and power, found themselves unable to cope with the smaller, more agile human vessels. Their energy weapons, designed for raw power, were outmaneuvered by humanity's precise, efficient hybrid systems. Their fleet is breaking apart, the tactical officer reported. 40% of their ships disabled or destroyed. The rest are falling back. Emma's screen showed the effectiveness of their reverse-engineered technology. The adaptation drives are performing beyond our highest expectations. Each ship is fighting better than the last, learning from every engagement. The collector fleet retreated in chaos, their formation shattered. Ships that had arrived in perfect order now fled in disarray, their commanders unable to comprehend how their supposedly primitive opponents had achieved such mastery over their own technology. Should we pursue? The tactical officer asked. Jack shook his head. Let them go. Let them tell others what happened here. Humanity isn't helpless anymore. As the collector ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, cheers erupted in command centers around the world. 13 years of hiding, learning, and preparing had paid off. Humanity had not just survived, they had evolved. Damage report, Jack called out, bringing focus back to the moment. "Minimal losses," came the response. "6 ships damaged, no complete losses. The adaptation drives protected us better than we expected." Emma was already analyzing the battle data. The drives learned more in this one engagement than in all our years of testing. "Next time, we'll be even stronger." Jack looked at the display screen, now showing only the triumphant human fleet in orbit around their home planet. "Send word to all surface teams. Begin Phase 2 of the Rising Phoenix Protocol. It's time to rebuild what's above ground, not just what's below." The human ships took up defensive positions around Earth, their adaptation drives humming with newly gained knowledge. The collectors had retreated, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. They would return, probably with a larger fleet. But next time, humanity would be ready, not just with ships and weapons, but with technology that evolved and adapted, growing stronger with each challenge. The collectors had given humanity their scraps, thinking them worthless. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what it needed to surpass them. 6 months after humanity's victory over the collector fleet, Earth had changed dramatically. The ruins of old cities were being cleared away, making room for new structures that combined human architecture with advanced technology. Commander Jack Stone stood at the window of the newly constructed Earth Defense Headquarters, watching workers guide construction drones through the air. "Another ship detected entering the system," reported the young officer at the scanning station. But there was no alarm in his voice. The adaptation drive systems now gave them plenty of warning about any approaching vessels. "Diplomatic registry," Emma added, walking onto the command deck. "Third one this week." She couldn't hide her smile. After their victory over the collectors, word had spread quickly through the galaxy. Earth was no longer seen as a primitive backwater, but as something entirely new. The alien ship that descended through the atmosphere wasn't a collector vessel. It was sleeker, more elegant, belonging to a species that called themselves the Merchants. They had come seeking trade. Specifically, they wanted to learn about humanity's innovations. "They're requesting landing clearance at the new spaceport," the communications officer announced. "Standard diplomatic protocols." Jack nodded. "Grant them clearance and notify the Council. They'll want to be present for this meeting." The spaceport, built from the ground up in just 6 months, was a testament to how far humanity had come. It incorporated everything they had learned about alien technology, but with distinctly human improvements. The adaptation drive principles had been applied to everything from the landing systems to the traffic control towers. "Hard to believe it's only been 6 months," Emma said as they walked to the meeting room. The collector's defeat changed everything. She was right. The retreating collector fleet had spread word of their defeat across their trade networks. The story of how a primitive species had taken their discarded technology and transformed it into something superior had caught the attention of every spacefaring race in the region. The council chamber was already filled when they arrived. Representatives from every major Earth nation sat around the circular table, ready to meet their latest visitors. On the walls, screens showed the ongoing reconstruction efforts around the planet. "The Merchants are particularly interested in the adaptation drive," Emma briefed the council. "They've never seen anything like it. None of them have. The whole concept of technology that learns and evolves, it's completely new to them." The alien delegation entered the chamber, their tall, elegant forms moving gracefully. Unlike the collectors, they showed no arrogance, no sense of superiority. They had come to learn, to trade, to understand how humanity had achieved something unprecedented. "Honored humans," the lead merchant began, speaking through a translation device. "We have traveled far to meet those who have changed our understanding of what is possible. The galaxy speaks of your achievement, not just in defeating the collectors, but in transforming their cast-off technology into something new." Jack stepped forward. "We're happy to discuss trade agreements, but first, we need assurances about the collectors. Our sensors show they're gathering a larger fleet." The merchant's expression shifted to what might have been a smile. "The collectors will not trouble you again. Their defeat here has broken their power. Other races, long dominated by their technological superiority, are beginning to resist. Your example has sparked change across the galaxy. Emma presented the latest data from their global reconstruction efforts. Cities were rising from the ruins, stronger and more advanced than before. The underground facilities, once humanity's only safe haven, were being transformed into research and development centers. We're particularly interested in your adaptation drive technology, one of the merchant scientists said. Our own ships use principles similar to the Collector's, powerful but static. The idea of systems that learn and evolve. It changes everything. That's what humans do, Emma replied. We adapt. We learn. We improve. When the Collectors left their damaged ships behind, they thought they were leaving useless scrap. Instead, they gave us the tools to surpass them. The meeting continued. Trade terms were discussed, and agreements were reached. But more importantly, connections were made. The merchants were just the beginning. Other races would come, eager to learn from the species that had transformed primitive technology into something revolutionary. In orbit above Earth, the defense fleet maintained its watch. Each ship's adaptation drive had grown more sophisticated since the battle, learning from every moment of operation. They were no longer just vessels. They were evolving examples of humanity's new approach to technology. Global Construction Report. An aide announced, handing Jack a tablet. The numbers were impressive. New cities rising on every continent. Schools teaching both Earth and alien sciences. Shipyards producing vessels that combine the best of human innovation with transformed alien tech. The underground bunkers in Sector 7 have been completely converted, Emma noted, reviewing the data. They're teaching the new generation of engineers there. Kids who grew up during the occupation, now learning how to build things we could only dream of 13 years ago. An alert sounded. Another ship approaching. But this one was different. The sensors recognized it immediately. A collector vessel, alone, broadcasting peace signals. They're requesting permission to land. The communications officer reported. One passenger. A diplomatic representative. Jack and Emma shared a look. This was new. The Collectors had never sent diplomats before. They had never seen the need to negotiate with primitives. Permission granted, Jack said. Full security protocols. The collector ship was larger than the merchant vessel, but it moved with less grace, less efficiency. Looking at it now, they could see all the flaws in its design, all the ways it wasted power and resources. It was a reminder of how far humanity had come. The collector diplomat was tall, heavily built, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. In the meeting chamber, it spoke with none of its species' former arrogance. We have come to formalize peace, it stated, and to learn. Our defeat here has shown us that our approach to technology, to progress, was flawed. We believed that power alone was enough. You have proven otherwise. Emma couldn't help but think of those first days after the invasion, studying the Collector's discarded technology in the underground lab. Sometimes the best teachers are those who don't mean to teach at all. The rebuilding continued. Earth's cities grew toward the sky again, but different now. Smarter, more adaptable, ready to evolve with new challenges. The fleet expanded, each ship incorporating new improvements, new ideas, new ways of thinking about what technology could be. Other races came to Earth, not as conquerors or skeptics, but as equals eager to learn. Humanity had done more than survive an invasion. They had changed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. You know what the best part is? Emma said to Jack as they watched another diplomatic ship land at the spaceport. We're just getting started. Every day we learn something new, adapt something further, push the boundaries a little more. Jack nodded, remembering those dark days 13 years ago when survival seemed like an impossible dream. From junk to juggernaut, he mused. Not bad for a bunch of primitives. Above them, Earth's defense fleet maintained its vigilant watch, their adaptation drives humming with possibilities yet unexplored. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger galaxy, not as followers or imitators, but as innovators who had proven that the greatest strength wasn't in power, but in the ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow.